All right, folks, hello and welcome to the first episode of Make It Make Sense with Mike and Marie. Of course, I am joined by America's favorite legal analyst. We all know her and love her, Marie Pereira. Marie, great to see you. She's a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. And Marie, I'm super excited for our new venture. It's an opportunity for us to bring our unique point of view to some of the biggest legal and true crime stories of the day. Also, hopefully we can sprinkle in a little bit of our own lives as well. So Marie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah.
When you mentioned tea with Marie last week, which I thought was rather corny because I don't drink tea, you do. And then I
I
said
do, as a matter of
madness
fact, I
with
have
Marie,
some
and I
right
said,
here.
okay, people think I'm mad enough. I don't have to admit it on air. So you came up with this other brilliant one, and I did a
Yeah.
poll, and it
Mhm.
won. It was number three. Like you said, make it make sense. You didn't use Mike. Now you're trying to be all sexy, Mike. You said make it make sense with Michael and Marie.
Yeah,
Honestly, I like calling you Michael. I'm not with
me
the
too.
Mike.
Yeah, now I'm a Michael for sure. I've always been a Michael.
Okay,
So I'll probably end up going with Michael and Marie. I don't know why I said Mike. It just seemed like quick and it seemed like, it was good for like a morning show or
that's
something
in
like
your other
that.
life,
Yeah, I feel like other life.
not with
Yeah, some of
me.
my friends from a long time ago still call me Mike, but really I think since I've graduated law school, I've been Michael, and that's kind of just become more comfortable.
I like
All right.
Michael.
Yeah, I like Michael too. Actually, I like Mike
Okay.
and Michael. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the Carmelo Anthony trial. Last
Uh-huh.
time you and I spoke, the jury had not delivered their verdict. They didn't know the sentence at the time. So what I want to do now is get your reaction to the verdict. Again, he was guilty of murder. The jury got to consider murder and manslaughter, but not criminally negligent homicide. The judge wouldn't allow that. But they chose murder after only just a little under 3 hours of deliberations, and then sentenced him to 35 years in prison. He was facing 5 to 99 years. Your thoughts first on the verdict?
Was disappointed, but I was not shocked or surprised because you would ask, do you think that he should testify? And I responded, yes, because he was raising the issue of self defense. And I explained that self defense is partly looked at from the lens of the person who effectuated the violence. They want to know what was it in your life experience, your mind, and the totality of the circumstances that made you believe you had to put that much force on the other person that you perceived as the aggressor. And the only person who could explain that would be Carmelo Anthony. And they didn't put him on the stand. And I said that could be problematic. And in fact, it was because he got convicted. I feel still now, if he had taken the stand and humanized himself and allowed the jurors and a cross examination to offer an explanation. Why did you bring the knife? What made you feel like your life was threatened? And why did you choose that to prevent yourself from being hurt? What was his point of view?
Usually, when that decision is made, now we know ultimately it's the defendant's decision to make at the end of the day. The attorney can advise you. If an attorney advises you not to take the stand, it's usually because there's something in your background they don't want people to know, or there's something happening behind the scenes that they're worried about on cross examination. That didn't seem to be the case here. He was a good kid, working two jobs, captain of the track and football team. I don't understand why he wasn't on the stand. Why do you think he didn't take the stand?
There could be a variety of reasons that we may never really actually know because it's client attorney privilege. And maybe there was something in his background that we didn't know. But
Hmm.
for us, as attorneys, we always do like a cost benefit analysis when we're thinking about exposing our client to cross examination and jury scrutiny, right? We think about, does he have a criminal history? Is there something violent in his background? Did they ever find him like with a knife, maybe in school? Are there people who could come in to say that he
Hmm.
was violent towards them? So all of these things we don't know because he never took the stand. So his veracity and credibility never became an issue. And yes, the decision is his, but you do listen to your attorney. So your attorney tells you this could happen and that could happen. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. So whatever it is his attorney told him could happen, it put the fear of the witness stand in his heart and they decided not to do it. But in my opinion, it could not have hurt because at the end of the day, look what happened. At least maybe if they heard his voice, maybe if they somehow elicited the fact that, he has seizures, maybe,
Hmm.
yeah, there's
No, I
so
know
much
he had
that
one in
could have
jail.
come
Yeah.
out to raise some sort of empathy for him, to humanize him, and to not make him look like someone who woke up one day going to his track meet, put a knife in the backpack, and said, I'm going out and I'm putting it on somebody today. They made him sound like that because it wasn't even like a motive given, like they knew each other. It was just like he intentionally left the house and made a split-second intentional decision with malice in his heart to take somebody's life and say, I'm going to do it right in your heart and sever like some sort of aorta, big artery. What does he know about that? He could have explained what happened. He pulled a knife because he was scared, and then the kid lunged at him and it went in his chest, and he had no idea that he would sever whatever the coroner or the medical examiner said caused that death.
Yeah, it went 3
He
inches
never
and
thought
2 inches
that-
into the heart. Like, who
Exactly.
aims, who has that good of an aim under those
Right.
circumstances? A lot of chaos. There's a lot of movement. It was a fluid situation. And which is why, Marie, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I've always felt since this verdict that this was as much a manslaughter case as it was a murder case. So as you talked about, the way the prosecution presented him was that he intentionally killed this kid. He went to the tent. As a matter of fact, they even took it back further, Marie. They said he left the house, like you said, put that knife in his bag with the intention of killing someone that day. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's harken back to the name of the show. Make it make sense how you can look at this situation and not see that this kid could have been scared, made the wrong decision to pull out a knife, but that was the reason, not because he went to the tent looking to kill someone. Doesn't make sense.
You know me. I am, in my analysis, not always, pro-defendant. Sometimes I get really impatient and I say, this is why we have laws. I don't commit crime because I don't want to go to prison. I'm not trying to be in prison. It's not sexy in there at all. The fact is someone died, but I want the charges to match the action and to match the mens rea and the intent. And for them to say he left his house intending to kill somebody, that makes no sense to me. I'm leaning towards you. He needs to be punished. A life was taken. It could have been prevented. Maybe if he quelled down his passion or whatever fear he was feeling at the time, but it wasn't intentional murder. It was more like a heat of passion, manslaughter against that poor young man. And that deserves to be punished, but not with intentional murder. It was overkill.
Yeah,
The
I would
charges.
agree. I would agree. And again, for the manslaughter, it's taking a really dangerous action that could result in serious harm, and you're being reckless about it. And I think that's
Yes.
kind of what happened here. He's a kid, if you look at him like a 17-year-old boy, and I think that's part, Marie, where this sort of racial divide comes in. I think the Black community, I know for myself, and I'll speak for myself and some of the folks that I've spoken to, I spoke to a lot of people about this. We see Carmelo Anthony as just a 17-year-old boy. We have sons that age. I have a son that age. I know what it's like to be struggling with your manhood, who you are. You're impulsive. This looked to me like an impulsive decision by a kid who was trying to, show off or be tough under circumstances where it really wasn't necessary. Dumb decisions by him. But intentional murder never seemed that way to me. So let me ask you about the sentencing. He got 35 years. Now, under sentencing laws in Texas, he'll serve 17 before becoming eligible for parole. Again, that doesn't mean he's going to get out, but he'll be eligible for parole. So what are your thoughts on the sentence?
He's 19 now, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if he does 17 years and he stays on his best behavior, right? He still would have his whole life ahead of him. Let me play devil's advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone did die.
Yeah.
Someone lost his life. And he had a twin brother. And he was just as much as a good kid as Carmelo Anthony. Both of them, he had a 4.0 average, captain of the football team. So was Carmelo, loved by his family, will be missed. But at least Carmelo is still alive. That young man, one could play devil's advocate because we cover both sides here, not just the side that we're passionate about. His parents just have a grave to go visit. Carmelo's parents, albeit 17 years seems like a lifetime, it's not because of his age. He could actually come out, and I believe if he goes up for parole, you know, the other young man's family, Metcalf family, is going to be like anti-parole.
They will
So
be
it's
there.
not guaranteed he'll be successful the first time. But if he stays out of trouble, and I don't want to say this, stays alive,
Yeah.
that's the other thing, because it's dangerous in there. He
Not
still
easy
has
for
a
a
life
19-year-old
to
kid with
build.
no real thug background. He's got to go in there and around these folks who basically lifetime criminals.
I think the charging was excessive. I
Okay.
think the juror's decision in 3 hours to come back with intentional murder was uncalled for. I think manslaughter would have been more appropriate. And I think, you know, if he makes it out in 17 years, then the time would match the fact that a life was taken. Because let's not forget that either.
Yeah. I've told a lot of people online that we don't live by the Hammurabi Code, right? The Hammurabi Code was basically an eye for an eye. Just because a life was taken doesn't mean our justice system says that another life must be taken. There must be a death penalty. The person must go away the rest of their lives. That's not how we do things here. We look at the circumstances surrounding the case. So I just want to make clear, I agree with what you're saying. When you look at the circumstances, the totality of the circumstances, the age of the victims, the situation that they were in particular, this defendant, then you make a decision based on that, and you say, what is justice here? And I think manslaughter, and I agree with you, 17 years feels right. That sort of falls in the range of what a manslaughter conviction would have put him in, 2 to 20. The jury probably would have chosen a higher number based on the situation here. So that puts him in that range. I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff going on outside the trial. This is now Judge John Roach Jr., 20-year veteran of the bench. He's going to be retiring in about 8 months, Marie. He's a Republican, a tough judge. A lot of the attorneys in the area doing interviews talking about, he's tough but fair. Generally a decent reputation, more pro-prosecution for sure. He made a decision not to put cameras in this courtroom. And in an interview that he did, like a couple days after the verdict, which I want to get your opinion on, a judge doing an interview after he keeps cameras out of the courtroom. But this is what he said when asked, should he have allowed cameras in the courtroom? He says, sometimes I think maybe I should have. At the end of the day, I don't think no matter what they are going to distort whatever they hear into their own agenda, that noise affects people and it affects the fairness of the trial. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the fact that he was doing interviews, right? He keeps cameras out of the courtroom, but he comes out and he wants to clarify some things in the trial. So he gives an interview, which is odd, I thought. And secondly, what he had to say about cameras in the courtroom, because I think if there were cameras in the courtroom, the distortion ends. You can try to put your own agenda, but most of us watching trials really just want the truth. There are people with their agenda, they're going to do what they're going to do. Most of us just want the truth. If we don't have cameras, then we rely on the people with agendas to tell us what's going on. Your thoughts?
I think it was really weird, for lack of a better word, that he didn't want cameras in the courtroom, but he was in his courtroom with cameras being interviewed after. That seemed extremely hypocritical to me.
Yes.
And I said to myself, the audacity for him to keep everyone out of the courtroom. And then he's giving out interviews himself. He claims that one of the reasons he did it is because he didn't want to intimidate any of the witnesses who would look out into the audience of people glaring at them and forcing them to perhaps change their personalities or their testimonies, that he's seen court cases where judges act all different and brand new.
Yes.
He just shut out all of the media. And then now he's surprised that people are coming up with all of these what happened in the darkness conspiracy theory when he created it. What do you have to hide is
Yeah.
my question.
And that's exactly the problem here. When I listened to him talk, some of his quotes really sounded pro prosecution. For instance, one of the things that struck me as odd was he wanted to make sure that the state and the defendant got a fair trial. Well, really, the Constitution says that the defendant is supposed to get a fair trial, not the state. And it just tells me, if I look behind the scenes, that the state might have had a lot to do with his decision, because if I'm on the defense's side, I think the light of day is what I want. I want you to see this testimony. I want you to understand the issues. I want you to know who my defendant is. So I would have wanted cameras. This attorney didn't. So it was weird. And I think ultimately it was a mistake. I think it would have been better for everyone had cameras been allowed in, but ultimately he decided not to. Let's move on quickly to some of the appeal issues. One of the things that's sort of bubbling to the surface right now is this idea of ineffective assistance of counsel. A lot of people saying, well, he didn't humanize Carmelo. He wasn't zealous enough, didn't put Carmelo on the stand, didn't put Hunter on the stand. Do you think there might be an issue here for ineffective assistance of counsel on appeal?
No, I don't think so. And it may be raised, but I would say based on the reputation of that attorney and based on what we saw from what we heard, because we didn't see nothing. Let's be clear on that.
That's right.
We heard what had happened because some Cody Thomas went on and told us what
Right.
happened.
Tell us what happened.
What had happened, right? So I think it was strategy. And strategy couched with a foundation in the law, no matter what the outcome is not ineffective assistance of counsel. Just because he made a decision not to put him on doesn't mean, where did he get his license from? What is this rinky-dink lawyer? He didn't know what he was doing. Who was he? Joe Pesci? Pesci and that
My Cousin
that
Vinny, one of my favorite movies.
My Cousin Vinny. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it will win, but on appeal, you have to pick every single thing because you never know. But this, I could pretty much tell you it's not going to work. It's not
an
going to be
objective standard of what a reasonable attorney would have done. And you don't look back in hindsight and say, oh, so he lost, so those decisions were wrong. That's not how they do it. Strategy, again,
No,
not
it's
really
not.
considered. So I don't think they have a leg to stand on unless, of course, there are things that we don't know that may come out in the appeal. We have to wait for that to be filed to see exactly what the claims are. If they even make that claim, again, that I don't know for sure they'll make that claim. But one claim I'm sure they're going to make, Marie, is this idea that there were no black jurors, and the prosecution struck 3 jurors for a reason. They were educators, they were black women, and they said because they worked in the Collin County public school system, they didn't want them, and that was enough for the judge to say, this is not based on race, this is a legitimate reason. So they're struck. They ended up with no black jurors. I guess they did have an Asian juror and a couple of Hispanic jurors, but no black jurors. Do you think that's an issue that might have some success on appeal?
Perhaps. Perhaps, and I'm sure, the defense attorney preserved it on appeal because there are different types of challenges you can make during voir dire. You can strike a certain amount of people for no reason, right?
Yeah.
And then you can strike for cause. And you can state your cause and say, Judge, I think this person would not make a good juror, could not be fair and impartial because of XYZ. And the judge then questions the jurors and sees whether or not your challenge for cause has any weight. To me, the fact that they're educators bars them from being fair and impartial. There could be an argument that that was excessive to bar them because they work in the school system. Did they work at his school and did they have contact with him? That was a lot. And I think there could be a situation where a court of appeals could examine that and at least entertain it. Unlike the ineffective assistance of counsel, this might have some meat and potatoes to it.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, no, I agree. This one might, again, it really boils down to that's under the judge's discretion. Appeals courts will look at it, but they give a lot of deference to the discretion of the judge at the courthouse trying the case. So it is a high bar, But I agree with you. There could be some grounds here. But again, we won't know until that appeals motions go out, and hopefully we'll get a look at those. Let's move on from this case to another case. Oh, go ahead. You have something to say? Sure.
Before we move on,
Okay.
right? There is something that popped up in my head and it's popped up before.
Mhm.
I'm trying to not make everything about race, right? And let's say, okay, maybe because, we're Black people, right?
Mhm.
We want to, we can't undo that,
No, race
right?
is a part of our lives, much more than
Right. It is,
yeah,
it's a part of everything,
everything we
right?
do,
Wherever,
every
whether wants to
experience we
admit
have.
it or not.
Hmm.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, what would happen if the races were reversed
Mm.
and Carmelo was a white boy, right?
Mm.
And Metcalf, right, was a Black boy, and
With a twin brother.
all of the jury was all people of color.
Hmm.
How would Metcalf feel to look at the number of people, 12 people, right, who's going to decide fairly, and you don't see anybody that looks like you and who's standing in your shoes? And shoes are racial too.
Yes, they are. We experience
How do
the
you
world.
relate? And I'm not, saying that it was all about race, but I'm saying to not even consider it and see why the people who are standing behind Carmelo Anthony would feel a way to see this verdict, 3 hours for the top charge, come down so easily. And there's no one that looks like him who could understand his point of view as he stood there as a young Black man.
Yeah.
And it matters.
No, it matters. It absolutely does. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how you view Carmelo Anthony. I think if you're not of his background, if you don't relate to his life experience, it's very easy to look at him and just think, I'm going to buy the state's argument that he left the house that day with an intent to kill because Blacks are inherently more violent, because, they live in a certain type of violent culture. And so all those things are very sellable to someone. Whereas when I look at it, I'm not seeing it that way at all. I'm saying this was a good kid from a good family, church-going family, 2 jobs, and he was doing all the right things. Why would this kid leave the house? I would be questioning those things. And without someone who looks like us in the room, I think that causes 2 things. That's why you only had less than 3 hours of deliberations, because if I was in that room, I'd be making people think about these things. How do you say that this is a kid who has no history of this, walked out that day with the intent to kill someone without giving me anything else? No mental health issues, no previous relationship. He was at the tent for 5-6 minutes talking to a friend who had called him over. And to me, I look at it and say nothing would have happened unless those kids went over to him. Again, I'm not saying what he did was right, but I'm saying had they not
Exactly.
said anything to him, nobody was getting stabbed. He was talking a lot of junk. Kids talk junk. Made a lot of mistakes that day. So I would have been in there trying to get folks to look at things a little differently, but obviously there was no one in there who was doing that. So I agree with you 100%. It makes a difference.
And that's where it's important to have fair representation in a jury who's making decisions concerning your fear and the reasonableness of your fear. In this situation, this is truly an F word. Why was he so fearful? Like what you said in your example, why would, if the roles and races were reversed, why would a white person be so fearful of 2 strong, big Black boys who were bigger? You have to be able to understand the fear. Because this is all about fear. He was afraid that he was going to be hurt. Why would you be afraid that you're going to be hurt by 2 big white boys?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, why?
Yeah.
Because I'm Black.
Yeah.
And there's friction between the races,
Yeah.
whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah, no
There's
question.
friction between the races.
Yeah. And he made a stupid
So,
decision. He was scared And
Yes.
you didn't need, either A, you throw a punch, get your beat down, run, whatever it is you do. Pulling out a knife is not the answer to the question. Let's be clear about that.
It's not.
But I
And
think
and
it's
and,
fair
and
to
you know what?
assume that he might have been afraid under those circumstances.
Yeah, and let's be clear for people who might want to, look at this podcast, right? This program and sort of, slice and copy and cherry pick. We're not saying that Carmelo Anthony was ever justified in even leaving the house with a knife.
Right.
We're not saying that he was 100% justified in pulling it out and using it to defend himself if in his mind he felt like he needed defense, right? That's not what we're saying. We're just saying to say that he left his house with murderous intent and intentionally plunged it in the poor victim's chest and hit some sort of artery, causing him to bleed out and die, that he did it on purpose. We're not saying that he shouldn't be punished, but what we're saying is the intent level for what he was ultimately found guilty of to us is not accurate.
Yeah.
Does he need to go free? We're not saying that either.
Nope.
We're just saying that murder, first degree, with pure intentional malice intent, is just something that is excessive given the totality of the
I
circumstances.
agree.
That's what we're saying.
And I just think, last word on this, it makes it hard, though, when you don't get on the stand and tell your story. I think, we can talk about this, but without him taking the stand and telling his story, makes this argument really, really hard. Again, we're making these theoretical arguments. Hard to ask this jury to make those arguments, especially under the circumstances, if he's not getting up there telling them how he felt.
I just wish this never happened. I
Yeah,
feel
I agree.
horrible for Metcalf's family
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, he's gone.
Yeah,
Like there's no ever getting their son back. That part.
yeah.
How do you can't fix that?
Now, and that
And then
that
they
hurt.
lost their son too. 17 years in prison
They did, yeah, yeah. And I have
for
empathy
for
for
a boy
both.
who's
People have a problem with that. I have empathy for both. I can feel for the parents, night after night, getting calls from prison, worrying about their son. That's a rough road for that family as well. And I feel for the Metcalf family. He's been talking, saying some things, maybe some things he shouldn't say, but I feel his pain. And he talked about how he'll never be the same. And I understand that completely.
he should have never left the house with a knife.
Yeah, I don't understand. I just wish to
Because
God I
if it
knew
was a hand
what was
fight,
going on through that
this
young boy's mind. Yeah, I don't know. All right, listen, let's lighten the mood for a second
all
here.
right. Anyway, we'll
All right, we're not going to solve the world's problems today here on Make It Make
yeah.
Sense. We can only try to make it make sense. And I think we made sense of a couple of things there, so I appreciate that. But here's something that I'm struggling to make sense of. It's Marie Pereira as a correspondent doing some incredible work on the red carpet for Island TV. Did a fantastic job. I want to play a little bit for folks. I want to get a little behind the scenes here about what this was like for you. I know you have, you have aspirations of, being this big TV star, whatever. But I'm going to play this now. So let's take a look.
Oh wow. TV network. I am here at the American Black Film Festival. How would you describe the movie, let's say, in 4 words?
Sexy, suspenseful, tense, and exhilarating.
All of that. You heard? Go watch it. June 26th, correct?
That's correct. June 26th on Peacock, exclusive.
This movie was shot in South Africa. You can watch it on Peacock. If you don't have Peacock, get it. Make sure you get your subscription to Peacock and support this movie.
This
What
is
are
my
you
favorite,
wearing?
Marie.
I know you wanted something deeper than that, but I need to know why you're doing this to everyone.
This is Express. Girl.
Express?
Yes, this is Express.
I-
Off the rack.
You look amazing. How does it feel to be at the 30th anniversary?
It feels amazing.
I had so much
All right.
fun doing that.
That
Island TV Network is a network that's based in South Florida, but they have a lot of expansive reach and I think over 13 Caribbean islands, right? And so when they asked me to cover the red carpet at the film festival, I was super excited. I had so much fun because you know me, I am a fashionista. And I've always wanted to say in my lifetime, what are you wearing?
Yes.
More than anything. I know we talked about the movie Strung, and I happen to know personally one of the producers on the movie. I know Malcolm Lee, can't say that, we're friends, but I know Dominique Telson. She's a Haitian American woman who is a very good friend, and she was one of the producers. So I was particularly proud of that. And when she was shooting the movie Strung, fun fact, she invited me to come to South Africa. We went to Cape Town. I had never traveled to Cape Town. I got to stay with her, right? In her fabulous wraparound porch,
Oh my
beach view
God.
apartment. I was there for long enough, right? And she took me out. So I got to go out to parties with her, Donna Bisco, one of the actresses in the movie. I met Malcolm. I went to the houses where they shot everything, and I was like a, bring your friend to work situation day. So I got to meet Chloe Bailey and all the other actors, and it was just amazing. I got to go out with Lynn Whitfield. We went out partying. I had the life. And then I get to cover the red carpet at the movie that's premiering at the Black Film Festival. It was like, wow, full circle moment for me. So yes, to answer your question, it was nervous. I was amazed, starstruck, and I felt blessed and honored that I got to do that. It was
I'm
fun.
super excited about it, and I truly want to thank you for. You're a busy woman. You're one of those people that I just love following you on social media because you're everywhere. You have ambition. You're out there. You're meeting people, doing incredible things. I live vicariously through you. All right, my love. Have a wonderful day, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. And we'll be back with another episode next week. This will be going up on my Substack at Michael Ayala 2. So make sure to go there and check out the entire episode.